Here I am. I stand at the door and knock.
My name is Keigo. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago in a Japanese household, and this is my story. You know, my childhood was a time of like turmoil and, you know, like I want to say isolation. Growing up, my parents were always working. My sisters were always busy with school, and you know, I used to be on the computer all the time because I was so bored. I was super bored. Because I had no one to talk to. Nobody in my neighborhood I was friends with, and you know, that's how I grew up. I was so angry at my parents for, you know, conceiving me. I was like, that's so selfish. How could you give birth and put me through so much pain? At one time, I was like, okay, if I'm 30 and if I'm not happy, maybe I should just, you know, give everything up. To me, death was salvation. That I think very much shaped how I saw the world. I was very angry. I felt like I had a bad hand in a game I didn't even want to play. That made me believe that there is no hope. So I grew up in a Buddhist household, and my parents used to take me to temple like every weekend. I was never really into it. My sisters were really religious. You know, my mom's really religious, but I didn't really connect with that. I didn't really see the point. Somebody told me about God growing up, and he's like, oh, he created you, you know, he created all of us. And for a little bit, I was angry at God, because like, okay, well, if God existed, then why did he create me? Why did he put me through so much pain? Like, that's so unfair. But I grew up in a Buddhist household, so I couldn't even blame God. So I blame my parents. Throughout like high school and like middle school, like I was very much into science and math. That's what I was really good at. I think that really shaped how I saw the world. To me, the world was about, you know, facts and things that can be tested, things that can be measured. My view of Christianity growing up was creationism, how God created the world, and I thought that was crazy. That's part of the reason why I really stay away from religion in general. I was like, oh, these people are brainwashed. Who would in their right mind believe these things? If there is a God, why would he care about us? And so what's the point of putting all your trust in one thing when you're not even sure that, you know, there's no evidence in the world that could prove that you're right? I think my first encounter with God was in January of 2015, so that was last year. My friend invited me to a party. I met this girl and I thought she was pretty cute. But then I got to know her a little bit more, and then I was like, hey, like, what are you doing tomorrow? And she told me, oh, I have church tomorrow. And then I was like, oh, you're Christian? My view of Christianity was always like, oh, it's an exclusive club that all my Korean friends went to. But these people are brainwashed. They need friends. They go for free food. Their parents push them to. 10% of your money goes to church? Hypocrites. Christians are weird. Christians are dumb. They worship this guy on the cross. He's about to die. And why would you put it on your house? Every time I compliment her, she would always say, oh, no, that wasn't me. That was God. And that frustrated me. It's a compliment. I didn't say that so you can point me to God. It came to the point where I was like, okay, so what's the deal with God? Yeah. Tell me about God. She took me to a small group. I loved it. I met Ryan Pang, and he actually also grew up in a Buddhist household. His first question was, so Peebs, if you're Christian, is it okay to have sex? And I was like, my man, that's the question I had. That first small group really broke my view, my misconceptions about Christianity. I mean, when I met you, Peeps, I was like, okay, this person I can actively talk about and question without feeling like I'm offending them. Yeah. When you told me that church is not just a place for Christians, but, you know, anyone who's seeking Jesus, anyone who's seeking faith, that made me feel like I was at home. That made me feel more comfortable searching for answers, searching for the truth. The first month that I went to church, that was when Alpha started. Alpha was when we started having questions about faith. We started asking, you know, the basics. I was like, okay, who wrote the Bible? How is the Bible like valid? What is heaven and hell? what are demons and angels? Amy had the best question. She was like, you know, it's unfair that there's so much evil in this world. Like, how could God allow that? That was when I realized that people, even Christians, are actively trying to find answers. And you know what? Since that, it's been a journey. It's been a real journey. As I started reading the Bible, I came at a crossroad. Either Jesus is, you know, really God and he's our savior, or he's a lunatic. He's crazy. I didn't see that coming at all. One night, I had a time when I was just by myself with my thoughts. I was reminded of all the things that I'd done in my life. I was reminded of, you know, how cold I'd been to my family. How I ignored, like, my friends sometimes, even though they needed me. All the times that, you know, I've judged people, you know, that really came back to me, and that really haunted me. I apologize for it, and I apologize to Jesus and God. I realized that all these things were something that I had done to myself. I felt so weak, and I realized that I was weak. And when I realized that I needed God, that I wanted God, that's when I realized that it was real. Nothing could convince me of God's existence. It was God's beauty of hope that really brought me to Christ. So throughout college, I struggled with an illness called borderline personality disorder, and it has to do with mood swings. I had some severe mood swings, where I feel really happy when I'm with my friends, but then suddenly, like, something happens and I just feel suddenly, like, very sad. And I went through that a lot throughout college, and I thought that was just gonna go on for a long time. But something I realized is that, I mean, it didn't go away, but since I've been, you know, praying to God, and since I have God and Jesus as my rock, I feel a lot more stable in my life. I feel like since I'm so committed, even though I struggle with sadness and loneliness, I know that it's not forever, and that, you know, God will persevere. And I see relationships so differently now. I saw it as something that was very convenient, but when I saw how close you can get with people, even just through prayer, I realized that, wow, like I want my friendships to be like that, where I can be open, completely open with people, and they still love me, and I can still love people. I think it's so amazing. I was blind to the truth, but now I see.